Welcome to the Rise Together podcast weekly hot take series. Every week, we're going to bring you powerful stories and strategies from leaders who are making a real impact by building stronger, more resilient communities. Get ready to be inspired, motivated, and equipped with the tools to thrive in both your personal and professional life.
Hey everybody, this is Beth Almaris with the Foundation for Family and Community Healing. At the Foundation, we're really dedicated to helping individuals and organizations build strength and resilience through skill-based education. I'm really excited today to talk to my guest. We have with us Emily Housley, hailing from the Atlanta area, and she is the principal and president at EELH LLC, which she'll tell you about in a second. How are you doing today, Emily?
I am vivaciously peachy. My aura is green. And Beth, I am super excited to have this conversation with you. How are you?
I am well. I'm not sure what color my aura is. I want to say maybe bubblegum pink, but that's just me projecting.
So I was reading orange, the color of hunger, but orange and pink are very complementary. So I think we're going to make a really, really colorful conversation here today.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I currently have a foster cat in the house who is always hungry, so you might be reading her aura.
Whoa, that makes sense. My dog, he's purple. He's very royal, but he's passed out on the couch. So something tells me we won't have too many interruptions today.
Okay, great. So why don't you start out by telling us all about a little bit about your company?
Yeah, most definitely. So we were joking before we were recording what the best way to introduce my company is, an EELH. Of course, is going to be the name of the company, LLC, Limited Liability Corporation. I am all of the liability. But my full name, I guess, officially, if you combine both my maiden name with my married name, I am Emily Elizabeth Larish Housley. And when I went through a career change that ultimately prompted me to found my own company and go out there on my own, I thought about the things that were important to me in life and things that I have learned both in the professional and the personal sense when it comes to scaling and growing companies, marketing, sales, but also engagement, people, and culture. And the things that I really enjoyed, that I was very passionate about, that I have since brought to my clients and to this world, are all about elevating their experiences, learning from, and helping them. So codename, Elevating Experiences, Learning, and Helping, EELH LLC.
That's great. So tell me about your clients. Who do you work with and what are you guys doing together?
Most definitely. Well, I happen to, if we go further back into my career, have found a very interesting niche working for lawyers and law firm owners. It's very interesting how their personalities as professional, service providers. This is very similar with doctors, engineers, people that are exceptional when it comes to their technical craft, be it working on an operating table with a patient, maybe helping someone navigate a personal injury claim, an arrest record, really, really great at being lawyers. But a lot of times they don't go to business school. They don't get that HR people and culture thing. And a lot of the issues that they have in their businesses, which carry home to their personal lives, are centered around engagement and well-being. And so what I have learned how to do is help them take off their lawyer hats and put on their business owner hats, and also reconnect with their hearts when it comes to solving a lot of root issues, particularly with people and culture, because as the saying goes, people are the root of a lot of problems, but they're also the root of a lot of solutions. Navigating relationships, maybe terminating some relationships that probably weren't where they needed to be, finding new relationships with people or equity partners, or even referral relationships to develop healthier relationships in a personal and professional sense to help them get to the next level when it comes to scaling their businesses. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. So what are some of the kind of challenges that folks are coming to you and saying, "Hey, Emily, help me solve this"?
Yeah, as much as I would love to say that working with my 30-year-old CEO clients and my 60-year-old CEO clients that they have totally different problems, they're really the same. And as much as we would love to say that we don't gossip about people, workplace drama is a real thing. And you get into a lot of he says and she says. What I'm interested in is, what did you say and how did it make you feel when you said that? Versus the other person, what did you hear and how did that make you feel? It's very interesting how the person at the top really feels that they were doing their job and had no negative intention on trying to get this person to realize they made a mistake that had certain impacts in the company or in the firm and what we need to do to work through that so it doesn't happen again. Whereas the person down here feels, I got shunned, I got shamed, I messed up super hard. Now this person hates me. And when I was really excited to share this new idea for a project with them, my confidence is shattered because I believe that they lost confidence in me. Totally different things here, right? This person is distraught and thinking about quitting. This person thinks, well, we made a mistake, we got through it. The next case that I get, I'm going to call back to them for their help. And so helping to set up infrastructure so that there can be checks and balances in very commonly uncommon, but common power dynamics, conflicts in the workplace, and then working through them so that way, if for whatever reason there is an issue like this again, we're not internalizing it and end up having a work product or a client experience that suffers from it.
So what you mentioned, like putting in place infrastructures to support that. What can you give me an example of one?
So a lot of times in certain organizations, both small and large ones, a third party is needed. And a lot of times we think as business owners that HR is that third party. That is absolutely the role to support, the health and the well-being, the engagement, and the production output of the team. However, I think we've heard the saying that, if you get arrested, you don't talk to the cops. Well, HR can kind of feel like the cops to employees. So sometimes it actually makes sense in certain settings with repeated issues or issues where there's so much of a disconnect to the point where the employees do not feel comfortable going to HR, to inviting in third parties that do have relationships with the main executives and employees, but without their skin in the game. Because guess what? HR's job is, funded by the executive. That creates a conflict of interest. How can we set up ways where there's a phone a friend, a consultant on call, a third party retained by the executive, but with visibility into a lack of visibility into what they can hear. So when their employees do feel empowered to share their ideas, but are afraid of retaliation by sharing their private ideas with HR, they're able to navigate a lot of potential emotional damage that can be caught in the crossfire. So that way they can all say what they need and get where they're going without being blocked by a lot of these, in theory, checkpoints and guardrails, but in practice, issues with company culture.
Interesting. So you were working and you obviously have worked with other organizations in your past. What are some we're really interested in employee well-being and leadership development. What are some good policies or programs or offerings you've seen that companies have for their folks?
I think it speaks a different message when you give someone a gift card versus when you block off time between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. for them to take a break. Case in point, I work with two clients, both of whom are working on not overhauling, but refreshing their maternity and paternity leaves. Now, company one is really excited about rolling out their update that their 6-week maternity and paternity leave is going to be updated to 8 weeks. They're also going to offer Instacarts, diaper deliveries, a $200 a month gift card. Now, company B has already been sitting pretty with their maternity and paternity leave, which is 4 months. They also have a no questions asked, you get a $1,000 a month gift card to your choice of grocery service. It also offers very, very wonderful upsides when it comes to the healthcare and the mandated maternity and paternity hours for those parents to spend time with their child. Both of the owners of this company have very, very good intentions. After all, in fact, both of the owners of both of these companies are parents themselves. However, I can imagine that it probably feels a little bit different when someone is texting you or maybe sending you Slack messages during that 6-week time that you have off and is inviting you to have groceries delivered to your house so you can spend more time at the office, because week 7, when you're back, we're going to have a whole lot of work for you, versus the companies that actually disconnect Slack messages and email accounts for the parents of the other company and go out of their way to ensure they are not contacted by other employees so they can spend that time, that more time, with their spouse and with their family. And when they come back, they have a clear plan in place for how many hours that person is expected to work. Plot twist, it's less than 40. So that way, they, in the long term, will remain more engaged, more loyal, and more productive with the organization than the one who's stressing about the days running out and the projects that they're going to have to pick up when they're back.
It's really interesting. I've been in the nonprofit sector for so long. I was like, wow, people do that? Like, organizations have that level
right.
of...
And that's the thing, is the grass is always greener. I mean, I've worked with nonprofits as well. And I'm sure you can imagine, that there are certain things that we hear in corporate America that are like, wow, if only that was me, versus in nonprofits where it's like, sure, I got to fight tooth and nail for this. And may I remind you, that both of the owners have their people's well-being in mind.
Right.
What these owners don't realize is that the people that work for them are thinking, oh, it's way better over here. And the person that's here is like, I'm super duper bored and I miss the startup environment or my nonprofit space. So expectations and lived experiences, man, they'll get you.
It's very true. It's very true. It just made me think about, too, like, some companies, when you take a vacation, they really encourage you to take your vacation and shut down and not be on email, where others, the expectation is that you will be reachable.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, there's a lot to, there's a lot to work out there in terms of work-life balance, job satisfaction. It's really interesting. Yeah. What do you think over the next few years are going to be kind of like emerging issues for employers to really keep an eye out on?
Yeah, I would love to say something new that no one's ever heard of, but I'll be honest, given the fact that I'm helping a lot of business owners solve the same problems today that I was first introduced to about a decade ago, I think what you said, work-life balance, is going to be the buzz phrase that will continue to show up in business reports and employment reports. Now, I think that little hyphen between work and life when it comes to balance is the most dangerous thing that there is. Because if you believe that you can be two different people, I mean, Apple TV's visual characterization of this in the show Severance is an exacerbated example, but a real one when it comes to the person that you are in the office and who you are as a coworker. It's completely different than who you are at home. Now, that line is going from an M-dash where we had time. It was normal to drive 45 minutes and decompress and not bring your work life home with you because it didn't live. I wish I had my cell phone on me, but I put it out of the room. You didn't have your work in your pocket all the time. So we are conditioned to feel guilty when we're not available to our coworkers. We're also conditioned to feel guilty when we don't make ourselves available to our family members. So I think the way that we can solve this, or at least get ahead of it, is understand that your employees can be asked the same question but have different answers. And that doesn't mean that they're changing. That just means that they're growing as people. For example, this doesn't feel like work for me. Consulting doesn't feel like work for me. My work doesn't feel like work for me. And I'm sure people are listening to this thinking, wow, that girl loves her job. I hate her, because they're probably on their way to a job that they hate. And that's okay. I cannot tell you how many jobs I have gone to or showed up for conversations like this where it felt like working to me because I did not effectively separate my work from my life before going into a work issue. So it's okay when you get hired and you set the standard and communicate to your boss, please let me work 10 hours a day. I'm all gas, no breaks. And working a 9 to 5 would really, really bother me. Flash forward to me in the same company, a higher up role, but now my life is a little different. And I say, listen, I don't want you to reach out to me before 9 a.m. Or if you do reach out to me after 5 p.m., you need to know factually that I will not be looking at this until 9 a.m. Those are two completely different people. However, they're the same person. So having ongoing checks and balances, if you are as an employee, do not assume that your boss will ask you to not work so much. And you as a boss, don't assume that your hardest worker loves working that much. So when you can have checks and balances along the way and ongoing one-on-ones, assuming that there is trust and intimacy in those relationships, it's not a surprise when I do not reply to my boss's email, until Monday. Or I, as my boss, am not worried or am worried about my person not getting back to me when I Slack them at 7:30 p.m. Expectations, work-life balance, and accepting that your definition of those terms are allowed to change over the course of your life, let alone your career. I think that's the game changer. What do you think about that?
No, I think it's really true. And, you bring up relationships. I mean, everything boils down to relationships, right? Like all roads lead back. Relationship with ourself and our relationship to work, relationship with the mission, whatever your organization and company is, relationships with your coworkers, your supervisees, and certainly with your supervisor, and then any clients you might serve. Like there's a lot. There's a lot to manage. So, and it is ever changing, and it can also be situational, right?
So true. I mean, you think about these relationships that you have with your most trusted coworkers. Well, guess what? You got on this project, project number 100, and the first 99 have been slam dunks and 100 goes to fail. And suddenly people who have had your back for years are suddenly pointing fingers at you because they're trying to protect themselves. Suddenly this, happy family, or some of my lawyer clients say, we're not a family, we're a firmly. I'm like, okay, red flag. That being said, these relationships, these ongoing relationships that you have with people who you're expecting to have your back, no questions asked, your quote unquote ride or dies, suddenly we're not friends anymore. How did that happen? Why did that happen? Why was this situation so escalated, and why were my emotions and my responses so escalated with it?
Interesting. Well, this has been a really fun conversation, Emily. Thank you so much. How can folks find you if they want to learn more?
I would recommend going to LinkedIn. I'm sure my email will be in the show notes for you to be able to reach out to me. Working on setting up a website, but for now, search me, Emily Housley, on LinkedIn. I check it more frequently than the other socials, but I'm just excited to be a resource. And honestly, I'm excited to talk to you, Beth. Like, you're the real one. You're the cool one here. People should be reaching out to you, not me.
That's right. No, I'm kidding. This was so fun. Thank you so much, Emily. And thank you all to our listeners. I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today on our Rise Together podcast weekly hot take series. We hope you've been inspired by today's stories and strategies for building stronger, more resilient communities. Remember, resilience isn't just about bouncing back. It's about growing through every challenge to become bigger and better. If you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with somebody who could benefit from these insights. Stay connected, stay resilient, and we'll see you next time.